Hi, I'm Joe with Miniature Landscape Hobbies, and in this episode, we're going to look at a quick and easy way to weather your miniatures for winter. Miniature Landscape Hobbies is proudly supported by these sponsors. Winter settings are almost as popular of a subject for wargaming dioramas as work featuring more temperate climates. This is easy to see, as when you type winter terrain into the YouTube search bar, you are met with literally thousands of tutorials to make really first-rate winter terrain. But I've always felt there's something missing. Building a snowy hill or ice formation is all well and good, but over time it occurred to me that there were not many tutorials on how to take other models and terrain pieces and convert them to match their wintry surroundings. Just as this polar bear looks strange standing next to a palm tree, I know a huge number of gamers that just ignore the context and plunk any old terrain down on their winter-themed table. Now, is this bad? Well, not really. It's your game after all, and it's better to enjoy a fun evening of gaming, even if the terrain is a little mismatched, than not at all. But playing where all the elements don't evoke the same feel for the environment does dramatically impede the immersiveness of the hobby, at least in my opinion. Fortunately, this problem doesn't have to persist. Adding a quick and convincing round of winter weathering to your models is not actually all that hard to do, and in this video, I'm going to show you how. Now, as always, this is my method, and it may not be exactly what you're looking for. Your time frame might be too urgent, or you may be missing an essential ingredient compared to what I'm about to show you. If this is the case, though, just consider omitting some steps or modifying your approach. Either way, you should end up with some great winter weathering. Let's get to it. The first step in any miniature project is to make sure you have the right materials and tools on hand to do the job. For my method of winter weathering, you'll need the following. First is the model you're actually going to weather, in this case a beautiful 3D printed shipwreck by Beaver and Broadsword. I always finish the actual paint job on the model before doing winter weathering, and you should too. Next you'll want Snowflock. The brand doesn't really matter, but consider your subject. You may need a little, or maybe a lot. Acrylic snow paste is also a must, as well as some ratty paintbrushes, scissors, and or a craft knife. Optionally, a palette knife might be useful too. Another essential is Mod Podge or white glue. The glossy type is best for this. If you want icicles, some clear plastic clamshell packaging is good to have, and for scattered snow you'll want a cheap can of hairspray and some gloss or satin varnish to hold it all in place. Lastly comes the mandatory super glue. I favor the kind with an activator spray, and a couple of mixing cups are handy as well. With these items collected, we can now get to work. First, we're going to make the icicles. Now, of course, it's possible to do winter weathering where the icicles aren't appropriate for the subject, but these are so easy to make and visually striking that you're likely going to want some icicles added to your miniature. First, pour some gloss Mod Podge into a mixing cup. You could use white glue for this too, but gloss Mod Podge will give you a more realistic looking result. Into this, add a couple of pinches of your Snowflock. Add just enough to give it a bit of texture and then mix it all up. Now you can use a ratty paintbrush and paint this thickly onto your clear plastic packaging. Don't skimp on this. You want deep and obvious brush strokes to make a coarse surface. Then you can set this aside to dry. We'll come back to it in a little bit. After this, we can move on to our snow paste. This product allows you to build a sense of depth in your snow and can allow you to create snow drifts over your subject. Before you start applying the snow paste, though, you need to think about the context of the piece you're working on. The shipwreck I'm featuring is for an Arctic diorama and game table. As such, everything is very heavily covered in snow. Obviously, this may not be appropriate if you want only a light skiff of snow. Another consideration here is the actual purpose of the piece you're working on. If your weathering is for a diorama and it seems appropriate, you could go to town with multiple layers of snow paste to get really deep snow. But if, like me, you're using your work for miniature gaming, you should keep the application of the snow paste to areas that won't impede moving your models around, while still implying an appropriate depth. Anyway, with that out of the way, you can now go ahead and, using a large worn-out brush, just blob on the snow paste as thickly or thinly as you want. Do remember here that deeper snow should be accumulating in the corners or undisturbed areas of the model, like down in these holes in the wooden decking. By contrast, any windswept areas are best left mostly bare. Snow paste can also be used at this point to blend your model into the surroundings. This wreck model has a small gap in it between the foam base I sculpted with it and the model itself. So here I use my palette knife and obscure the gap with a fairly thick application of the paste. With all this applied, I need to wait a couple of hours for the paste to set, so I put everything aside to dry. After a little while, it's time to work ahead, and we can go ahead and imply that frost and blown snow is clinging to the model. To do this, we need one of the most useful but underappreciated adhesives you can get: hairspray. First, I spray any surface that needs a light layer of frost or snow with it, and then I sprinkle flock lightly over top. I often do this over top of the dried snow paste as well, as I like the texture of the flock a little more, and I also put this on vertical surfaces to imply clinging frost. Once again, though, the nature of your subject will dictate how heavy or light you want to apply the snow and where you want to put it. Once the hairspray is set, I give the model another spritz over top to protect the work and to avoid scratching the flock off. The snow effects are now done, so it's time to return to the icicles. I now cut out jagged, pointy shapes from the plastic packaging and Mod Podge mixture. I can do this with either a craft knife or with scissors. In my case, I use both. I make a lot of different sizes here and there, and I leave some in jagged strips to imply clusters of icicles. When I'm satisfied with the number and variety I've got, I get out the super glue and adhere the pieces to where I feel the ice would accumulate on the model. As I mentioned, I favor a super glue with accelerant spray for this. This is for two reasons. First, it sets the icicles quickly, making your life a lot easier. And second, when hit by accelerant, super glue takes on a whitish appearance that forms in blobs, which simply looks just like more ice. After the icicles are applied, you're pretty much finished, but you have to do just one more thing: add varnish, either satin or gloss. Varnish protects your work and helps it adhere to the surface of the model that much more. This is especially important to make the icicles resilient enough to handle gameplay and to reinforce the adhesion caused by the hairspray. And once you've done a couple layers, the project is done. If you follow this process, you'll now have a method to create some winter weathering that's both quick and easy to make, but resilient enough to handle miniature gaming. It'll also be quite striking and have a really good look to it that will be suitable for even the most intricate diorama. I hope that this tutorial will be of some use to you to help you with your own Arctic or winter-themed creations. That's it for this episode. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my sponsors in the video description, and if you can, consider joining my Patreon for lots of great perks. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember to keep building life in miniature.